The register screen flashed my name in bright green letters while the cashier still scanned the person ahead. It said, "Welcome back, Jonah Elias Mercer." I had never signed up for a store card. I had never given my name to anyone here. The letters sat there like they belonged. Then a woman shoved her cart in front of me and placed her items on the belt as if my space had not existed. Her elbow hit my basket. A jar rolled and tapped the metal edge. She did not look sorry. She looked at me once fast and hard like I had done something wrong. Her eyes stayed flat. No anger, no shame, just a cold choice. The screen kept showing my name above the prices as her items moved forward. I stared at the display, waiting for it to change to hers. It did not. It stayed on me. The cashier did not blink. The woman did not swipe any card. She did not type anything. Still, the machine greeted me like a friend. A small tone sounded with each scan. Under my name, a line appeared for my points balance like I had been collecting it for years. I felt my face go hot, then cold. I should have spoken. I should have stepped away. Instead, I did something small and mean because she had cut in front of me and because I wanted control over something. I slid my bottle of hot sauce onto the belt, right behind her bread, and I pushed it forward until it sat among her things. I kept my hands calm. I kept my mouth closed. I acted like it had been there all along. The cashier scanned her bread, then the hot sauce. The beep sounded the same as the others. The screen still said my full name. The price appeared under it like the store charged me for watching. The woman did not turn. She stared straight ahead, chin lifted as if she had won. I watched the hot sauce go into her bag. The petty part of me felt a small, tight satisfaction. Then the payment screen changed and my stomach dropped. It did not ask for her card. It showed a card type already chosen. It showed the last 4 digits of a number I knew too well because it matched the card in my wallet. It asked for a tap. The woman lifted her hand, but she did not hold a card. She tapped the counter with 2 fingers. The terminal approved the sale. A receipt printed. The cashier tore it off and handed it to the woman without looking up. The top line on the receipt had my name again, Jonah Elias Mercer. The woman took it and folded it once, neat and slow, like she had expected it. At the same time, my pocket buzzed. My phone lit up with a purchase alert. It showed the store name, the exact amount, and a time stamp for right now. My throat tightened. I shifted my basket back, trying to create space between me and the belt. The belt did not stop. It moved on its own, dragging my items forward as if a hand pulled them. I reached for the divider and pushed it down hard, but it slid back into place by itself. The screen refreshed and displayed next customer, Jonah Elias Mercer. The woman rolled her cart away, but she did not leave. She stopped at the end of the lane just past the candy rack, and she stood there too still. I felt eyes on me. The security mirror above showed the lane behind, warped and wide, and in it her face looked longer than it should have. The cashier finally looked up at me, blank and patient, like I had been standing there for hours. I turned my head to follow the woman, and she was suddenly beside me, close enough that I smelled her hair, clean and sharp like soap. She leaned toward my ear. Her voice stayed low, warm and certain, like we shared a secret. She whispered my full name again, slowly, like she had said it 1,000 times before. Jonah Elias Mercer. Her whisper stayed inside my ear even after she pulled back. My full name sounded wrong in her mouth. It sounded practiced. I stepped away from her, but my basket stayed pinned by the moving belt. The cashier waited with his hand over the scanner, calm like a machine. The woman did not return to her cart. She stood between me and the end of the lane. Her shoulders lifted a little, then dropped, like she had felt a sudden weight. One of her feet dragged as she shifted. The heel scraped the tile and left a thin sound that made my teeth press together. She looked down at her shoe as if it had betrayed her. Then she looked at me. Her face stayed almost polite, but her eyes turned tight. Her jaw set in a careful way, like she held anger behind her teeth so no one could see. I felt it anyway. It pressed against my skin. It made my scalp prickle. I remembered the hot sauce sliding into her groceries. I remembered the small satisfaction. It did not feel small now. It felt like I had left a mark on her. Her hand rose slow, and she touched the folded receipt in her fingers. She squeezed it once. The paper crumpled, then smoothed again. Her posture changed as if she had to stand straighter to keep control. Her dragged foot stayed slightly behind, like it no longer obeyed her. I tried to speak, but my mouth stayed dry. I glanced at the payment terminal. It still showed my card type, like my wallet had been opened without my hands. My phone buzzed again with another alert, but I did not take it out. I did not want to see what else the store thought I owed. The cashier cleared his throat. It was a soft sound, but it pulled attention like a bell. He looked past me, not at me, and his eyes were blank. He said, "Next customer." His voice did not match his face. It sounded too smooth, like a recording. I realized people were watching. At the next lane, a man with a basket of fruit had turned his whole body toward us. His lips were pressed together like he judged the shape of my silence. Behind him, a woman with a child in her cart stared with wide eyes, then looked away fast when I noticed. Another shopper leaned around a display of gum to see better. Their gaze felt heavy. It felt like a line of heat on my neck. My fear was not only about the woman anymore. It was about being seen, about being the problem, about being the one who caused a scene at a checkout. I pictured myself opening my mouth and everyone hearing a complaint that sounded small and weak. I pictured their faces tightening, the way the line cutters had, as if I deserved whatever happened. The woman kept staring. Her eyes flicked once to the belt, to the space where my hot sauce had been scanned into her bag. Her nostrils flared. She swallowed, slow and hard. The controlled anger in her face turned into something sharper for 1 second, then it smoothed out again. She leaned closer, not as close as before. Her dragged foot scraped forward to match her other foot. It moved like it was pulled by a string. She whispered, low enough that only I could hear, "You put it in." My stomach turned. I did not answer. I did not nod. I did not even breathe right. I kept my face calm because the watching eyes made me feel trapped. I stared at the cashier as if I was ready to pay for my own things and leave. The cashier scanned my first item. The beep sounded too loud. The screen still showed my name like a label. The woman did not move away. She stayed at the side of the lane, just inside my space, like a guard. The shoppers kept watching, hungry for a mistake. The receipt printer clicked again. It should not have printed. The sale was already done. The cashier had not hit any button. Still, the paper fed out in a long strip, longer than a normal receipt. It kept coming, line after line, and the sound made the hairs on my arms rise. The cashier tore it off and held it out to me without changing his expression. I took it with shaking fingers and looked down. The first lines were not prices. They were items, but the words were wrong. They read like a list made from my body and my private thoughts. 1 adult male, Jonah Elias Mercer. 1 set of fingerprints, right thumb clear. 1 left palm scar, old burn 2 inches. 1 heartbeat, fast uneven. 1 guilt, petty fresh. 1 fear of being judged, heavy. 1 mouth that stayed closed when it should have spoken. I stood there with the paper trembling in my hands, while the woman watched me like she waited for the rest of the list. I folded the long receipt and shoved it into my pocket like it could bite me. I grabbed my basket before the belt could pull it again, and I backed away from lane 3. The cashier did not stop me. The watchers did not speak. Their eyes stayed on my face as I turned toward the exit, and I felt like I had been measured and found weak. I moved fast past the candy rack and the magazine stand. The front doors should have been straight ahead. Instead, I saw an aisle where the exit should have been. It was a narrow aisle lined with canned soup on both sides. I stopped so hard my shoes squeaked. I looked left and right, expecting the customer service desk, the windows, the parking lot. I saw only shelves. The ceiling lights hummed in a steady line that ran deeper into the store. I turned back to lane 3 to check if I had walked the wrong way. The lanes were gone. In their place there were more aisles, all tight and identical, each one ending in a wall of boxes that looked like they had never been opened. The store felt stretched, like a map that had been copied too many times until the edges blurred. I kept walking because standing still felt worse. The air smelled of plastic and cold metal. The floor tiles repeated the same pattern, but the pattern did not lead anywhere. Every turn brought more shelves. I passed the same display of rice 3 times. The sign above it read rice in clean black letters, but the price below changed each time like the numbers could not settle. I heard a cartwheel squeal behind me. I glanced back. At the far end of the aisle, the woman stood beside a stack of bottled water. She was too far to have followed that fast. Her cart was not with her. She held nothing in her hands. Her posture was straight again, but one foot still dragged a little, slow and wrong, like it had to be reminded to move. She stared at me as if I had never left the checkout. I turned into the next aisle without thinking. My heart hit hard against my ribs. I told myself it was a trick of panic. I told myself stores had mirrors, corners, blind spots. I walked faster, then slower, trying to hear if she followed. The lights above me buzzed louder for a moment, then settled back into their steady hum. At the end of the aisle, I saw a freezer case that should have been along the back wall. Its glass doors were fogged, and the cold air around it smelled sour. I reached for one door to ground myself in something real. The handle felt warm, not cold. I jerked my hand back. My phone buzzed again in my pocket. I did not check it. I was afraid it would show another charge. I was afraid it would show a list. I needed an employee. I needed a person who could confirm the store was normal. I scanned the aisle signs. They were wrong. One sign said dairy, but the shelf beneath held batteries. Another sign said cleaning, but it held baby food. The labels looked neat and official, like the store insisted it was correct. I moved toward the sound of voices, but the voices did not stay in one place. They rose and fell, then stopped. I passed an end cap that showed a smiling family on a cereal box, but their eyes were too sharp. They looked like they watched me pass. I looked away and almost walked into someone. It was a teenage employee in a dark apron, standing in the middle of an aisle with a cardboard box at his feet. He stared at the box like he did not know what it was. His name tag was blank. His hands were still. I stepped close enough for him to hear. I asked where the exit was. My voice sounded thin. He lifted his head in a slow motion. His eyes focused on my face, then slid down to my pocket where the receipt was. His lips parted a little like he tried to remember a line. He said, "Lane 3." I told him I was not in a lane. I told him I needed customer service. I asked if the store was rearranged. I asked if there was a problem with the register showing my name. His expression did not change. He looked past my shoulder. I followed his gaze and saw the woman again, closer now, standing at the aisle entrance. She should not have been there. She had not walked. She had simply arrived. Her dragged foot rested behind her like a quiet threat. Her eyes did not blink. I backed away from the employee. He did not stop me. He did not warn me. He only repeated very softly lane 3 like it was the only place I belonged. Then the store intercom crackled overhead. A cold voice filled the aisles, flat and official. It said, "Assistance needed in lane 3. There was a short pause, like a breath. Then the same voice said my full name, clear and careful, the way the register had shown it. Jonah Elias Mercer. The intercom had not even finished saying my name when the aisle signs shifted again. The word service appeared above a narrow passage between shelves, like the store had opened a mouth for me. I followed it because I did not see any other path that made sense, and because the woman waited behind me in the open space where aisles met. The passage led to a counter with a bright sign that said customer service. The lights above it looked whiter than the rest of the store. 2 employees stood behind the counter. Both wore neat aprons. Both smiled the same smile, wide and ready, like they had practiced in a mirror. A small bell sat on the counter, but I did not touch it. I did not want to make a sound that called attention. I spoke first, fast but controlled. I said someone had cut in front of me at the register. I said the register had shown my name even though I had not given it. I said my card had been charged without my tap. I tried to keep my voice level. I tried to sound like a person with a simple complaint. One of the employees tilted her head and kept smiling. Her name tag read MIA. The other employee was older with gray hair pulled tight. His name tag read Dan. Neither of them looked surprised. Mia nodded slowly, as if she had heard every word before. Dan said, "We were sorry you felt confused." I blinked. That was not an answer. I pulled the long receipt from my pocket and held it out. My fingers shook, but I kept the paper flat. I told them it printed by itself. I told them it listed things I did not buy. I did not say what the items were. I did not want the words to enter the air again. Mia took the receipt with 2 fingers like it was delicate. She did not read it. She only looked at the top where my name sat. Then she set it on the counter, perfectly straight like a form. She said, "Our system welcomed you back, Jonah." My stomach tightened. I had not said my name. I had not shown an ID. I asked how she knew it. Dan kept smiling. He said the system remembered. I pointed toward the store. I said the layout had changed. I said I could not find the exit. I said a woman had followed me and whispered my full name. I forced myself to describe her as calmly as possible. I said she had dark hair and a clean smell. I said she had dragged 1 foot like it hurt. Mia nodded again, slow and gentle. She said, "Sometimes a valued customer experienced stress in the aisles." Dan said, "We recommended breathing and returning to your lane." The words landed wrong. Valued customer, return to your lane. It sounded like a script. It sounded like a policy. I looked around the counter area for anything real. There were pamphlets in clear holders. There was a jar of pens. There was a small bowl of mints. Everything sat in perfect lines as if someone measured the space. Behind them on the wall, a bulletin board hung under a sign that read Loss Prevention. It held photos on white paper. Each photo had a date stamp and a short note. Banned customer. Do not serve. Call manager. I told myself not to look. I looked anyway. The first photo showed a man in a hoodie, blurred like a security camera shot. The next showed a woman with a stroller. Then I saw my own face. It was me, not similar, not close. It was the exact shape of my jaw, the same small mark near my eyebrow. My eyes looked tired in the photo. I wore a jacket I did not own. The paper under it said Jonah Elias Mercer, banned, date 2017. My mouth went dry. I counted back without meaning to, years earlier. I had not been banned from anywhere. I had not even lived in this area in 2017. I tried to speak, but my tongue pressed against my teeth like it did not know where to go. Mia followed my gaze to the board. Her smile stayed in place, but her eyes narrowed just a little, like a camera focusing. She said that was resolved. I asked what it meant. My voice came out low. I asked why my face was there. I asked who had put it up. I asked if they had mixed me up with someone else. Dan said, "We appreciated you bringing your concern to us." Mia said, "We were here to help you complete your purchase." I stared at them. I felt the same pressure I had felt under the eyes of shoppers, the fear of being judged, the fear of sounding unstable. I tried to hold onto logic. I asked for a manager. I asked them to call security. I asked them to show me the camera footage from lane 3. Dan leaned forward slightly. His smile widened. He said lane 3 was waiting. Then I noticed the space behind the counter, where employees moved between a door and a small office. The door stood half open. I had not seen anyone enter. A dragged foot scraped the floor behind them. Mia and Dan did not turn. Their smiles did not break. But their eyes shifted, just for a moment, toward the door as if they checked that something had arrived on time. The woman stepped into view behind the counter area, on the employee side where customers could not go, and she looked straight at me like I had finally come to the right desk. I did not wait for Mia or Dan to speak again. My anger rose fast and clean, and it pushed me forward. I stepped around the counter edge and slipped through the half-open door. No alarm sounded. No one grabbed my arm. Behind me, Mia's voice stayed sweet and flat. She told me the back area was for staff. Dan told me to return to lane 3. Neither of them moved to stop me. The hallway behind the counter felt too narrow. The lights were dimmer and the air smelled like old cardboard and cleaner. Doors lined the walls, each one closed. I heard the store intercom hiss once, then go quiet. My own steps sounded loud, like I walked alone in a building after hours. I waited for someone to chase me. No one did. I walked until the tile changed to rough gray floor. At the end of the hall, I saw a door marked security. The letters were black on white plastic. The door was not locked. That made my skin crawl more than a lock would have. I pushed it open with my shoulder and stepped inside. The room was small and cold. A row of monitors covered the far wall. Each screen showed a different part of the store. There was no guard in a chair, no coffee cup, no jacket on a hook. Only the steady glow of cameras watching empty corners and slow-moving shoppers. A desk sat under the screens with a keyboard and a mouse, both worn smooth. I moved closer and scanned the feeds, searching for the woman. I expected to see her near customer service, near lane 3, anywhere. I saw aisles that looked normal again, wide and clear. I saw people pushing carts and reading labels. I saw a child reach for candy and a parent pull the hand away. Everything looked calm, like my fear had been a private issue. One screen showed lane 3. The view came from high above, the kind of angle that made everyone look smaller. I saw the conveyor belt. I saw the cashier at his station. I saw the candy rack. And I saw myself in line with my basket standing alone. There was no woman, no cart cut in front of me. No elbow hit my basket. I watched myself shift from foot to foot, then place an item on the belt with slow hands. My throat tightened. I leaned in until my face was close to the monitor. The screen showed the register display turned toward the cashier. Even from that distance, I could see a bright bar of color. It looked like the welcome screen. I could not read the letters, but I knew what it said. I could almost hear it saying my name. I watched the moment again in my head, sharp and clear. The woman shoved in front. The hot sauce slid into her groceries, her whisper in my ear, my full name, my phone buzzing. My body reacted as if it still happened. My stomach clenched, my skin prickled. My hands went cold on the edge of the desk. On the monitor, I reached into my basket and put a bottle on the belt. I watched closely to see if it was the hot sauce. The camera showed the bottle roll a little, then settle. The cashier scanned it. The beep sounded only in my memory, but my shoulders still jerked at the thought. Still, there was no other customer at my side. I stood there like a man arguing with air. I grabbed the mouse and clicked through camera views, fast and rough. I checked the aisle near the front doors. I checked customer service. I checked the passage that had appeared when the intercom called my name. The store looked normal on every screen. My face felt hot, as if a crowd laughed at me, even though I stood alone in a silent room. Then I opened a camera, labeled Hallway 2. The screen showed the exact hallway outside this room. It showed the gray floor and the dim lights. It showed the closed doors. And it showed me standing in the middle of the hall, shoulders tight, head turned toward the security door. Behind me, inches from my back, the woman stood. Her face was close to my shoulder, like she had leaned in to smell me. Her dragged foot rested at an angle, heel lifted slightly off the floor. Her eyes stared at the back of my head with patient anger. She did not blink. She did not move. She simply waited, close enough that my body on the screen looked tense, as if it felt her breath. I spun around so hard my neck stung. The hallway behind me was empty. I slammed the security room door open and stepped into the hallway with the monitors burned into my mind. My hands shook with a hot need to prove it. I held on to one thought. The camera had shown her inches behind me. I could make someone else see it. If a manager saw it, this would stop being only inside my head. I walked fast back toward the front, passing closed doors and storage racks. The store noise returned in waves as I reached the sales floor. Carts rolled. A child cried somewhere. A cashier called for the next customer. It sounded normal, and that made me feel more exposed, like I was the only wrong thing moving through it. At customer service, Mia and Dan still stood behind the counter with the same practiced smiles. The woman was not there now. The space behind them looked empty and clean, as if no one had ever stepped into it. I leaned forward and told them I needed a manager right now. I said I had seen the security feeds. I said a camera had shown someone standing behind me in the hallway. Mia's smile stayed fixed. She said we could request assistance. Dan nodded once and reached under the counter. He did not pick up a phone. He pressed something I could not see. Then he looked at me with quiet patience, like I was a customer who would not accept a simple return policy. A door opened behind them. A man stepped out. He wore a buttoned shirt and a clipped badge. His hair was neat, his face smooth, and his eyes held the same calm blankness as the cashier in Lane 3. He introduced himself as the manager. He spoke like he had rehearsed this exact tone for complaints. I told him my name appeared on the register without permission. I told him my card had been charged. I told him a woman had cut in front of me and whispered my full name. I said I saw her on a hallway camera behind me when she was not there in real life. I asked him to come to the security room and watch the footage with me. He listened without changing his expression. When I finished, he did not ask questions about the woman or the charges. He looked at my hands. He looked at my chest rising too fast. Then he looked at my face as if he measured the risk I was to his store. He said, "I was concerned about your behavior." The word behavior hit harder than any denial. It turned the story around and pointed it back at me. I told him the footage would show it. I told him I did not want a refund. I wanted him to see what I saw. I asked him if the cameras were real or only for show. He said we could not review security footage with customers. I told him I was not asking to take it home. I asked him to view it himself, right now, with me present. I said the woman was in the back hallway on the screen. I said she was close enough to touch me. I heard my own voice getting louder. I tried to pull it down, but anger and fear kept pushing it up. The shoppers nearby started to stare. A man in a coat paused with a basket and watched. A woman by the lottery machine turned her body so she could see better. The front area grew quiet in a way that did not match the normal store sounds. I felt every eye looking for a reason to judge me. Then I saw phones. One shopper lifted a phone chest high, angled toward my face. Another held a phone up near her shoulder, pretending she checked messages while the camera lens pointed at me. A third person stepped closer for a better view. Their screens reflected light, small and sharp. My stomach dropped. My fear of being judged did not feel like a thought anymore. It felt like a trap closing. I lowered my voice and forced my face into something calm. I told the manager I did not want trouble. I told him I only wanted to leave and be sure I was not being used for a joke. I asked him again to look at the footage and confirm there was a woman. He looked past me at the people filming. He did not tell them to stop. He looked back at me and spoke softer, like he wanted to sound caring while he pinned me in place. He said, "We needed you to calm down." I felt my cheeks burn. The phone stayed raised. I imagined the clips being sent to strangers with captions about a man losing it at customer service. I imagined my face frozen mid-sentence. I imagined comments under it calling me crazy. The store did not feel like a building anymore. It felt like a stage built for my worst fear. I swallowed and reached into my pocket. I pulled out the long receipt and held it out to him again. I said it listed things about my body. I said it printed on its own. I said it was proof the system knew me. I begged him with my eyes not to make me repeat the lines out loud. He did not take the receipt. He leaned in slightly, keeping his voice low so the watchers had to strain. His calm face did not change, but his eyes sharpened, like he had finally found the real issue. Then he asked very quietly, "Did you hurt her foot again?" I backed away from the counter and headed for the front doors. I kept my hands low and open so I did not look like a threat. The shoppers with phones shifted to follow, stepping sideways to keep me in frame. The manager did not raise his voice. He only watched me like he had already decided what I was. The first register beeped twice, then paused. A second register beeped twice in the same rhythm. Then a third one joined in. The pattern spread across the lanes, neat and steady like a signal. 2 beeps, silence, 2 beeps, silence. It did not sound like scanning. It sounded like a warning made from the same small sound, repeated until it meant something else. I stopped near the end of the lanes. My eyes jumped from terminal to terminal. Cashiers stood still with their hands near the scanners. Some shoppers paused with items half lifted from belts. No one spoke. The beeping kept its pattern, and it seemed to point at me, as if the store had found a way to call me out without words. I took another step toward the doors. The beeping grew louder, not because it changed, but because more registers joined it. I heard it from every direction. It filled the front of the store and pushed air into my ears. The doors were only a short distance away, but the sound made that space feel longer. I looked at the glass. I expected to see the parking lot and cars. I saw light outside, but it looked flat like a bright screen. The automatic doors did not slide open when I approached. I stepped closer and waited. Nothing moved. I waved my hand in front of the sensor. The doors stayed shut. Behind me, the manager spoke softly as if he addressed a child. He told me to stop and breathe. He told me the beeping was normal. His voice made my skin crawl. It was too calm. It asked me to accept the lie so everyone could feel comfortable again. I turned back toward the lanes. At the far end near lane 1, the woman appeared. She stood in the open space beyond the registers where shoppers lined up and drifted toward the exit. She did not rush. She did not need to. She only began to limp forward, slow and careful. Her dragged foot made a soft scrape with each step. The sound cut through the beeping like a thin blade. She kept her eyes on me. Her face stayed controlled, the same polite mask, but her anger lived under it like heat. She moved one lane at a time, passing behind cashiers and customers as if she belonged there. No one stopped her. No one reacted. A shopper with a phone angled it toward her for a moment, then shifted back to me. I realized she was not trying to catch me. She was placing herself where she wanted to be seen. She was giving the room time to turn toward me. She was letting the store hold me in place while she approached at her own pace. The beeping continued. 2 beeps, silence, 2 beeps. I tried to match it to my breathing, but it made my chest tighten instead. My hands tingled. I felt sweat under my shirt. I thought of the manager asking about her foot, and the memory of my hot sauce sliding into her groceries hit me again, sharp and bright, like a flash of guilt that someone else could touch. I stepped sideways between 2 lanes, looking for a gap. The woman shifted her path without speeding up. She kept the same slow limp, but she stayed in the line between me and the doors. She did not block with her body alone. She blocked with the attention of the room. Every face and phone seemed to follow her movement, then return to me, like I was connected to her by a string everyone could see. I looked for an employee, any employee, someone with a name tag and real eyes. I saw blank stares. I saw small smiles. I saw hands resting near scanners, ready to beep again and again. The store felt like it agreed on something about me that I had missed. The woman stopped a few lanes away. She did not need to come closer. She only stood there, limp settled, and waited like she waited at the end of a sentence. Her gaze held me in place more than the locked doors did. My phone buzzed in my pocket. The sound cut through the beeping because it was mine. I pulled the phone out with stiff fingers. A message sat on the screen from an unknown number. There was no text, only an image. The photo showed lane 3 from close behind, at shoulder height. It showed the conveyor belt and my hands near my basket. It showed the cashier in front of me. And it showed the side of a woman's face inches from my ear, her eyes looking past my cheek as if she was taking the picture herself. I shoved my phone back into my pocket and moved away from the registers. I did not run. Running would have made the phones follow faster. I cut between two aisles near the front displays, keeping my head down. The beeping stayed behind me, still in that same pattern, like it counted my steps and marked my direction. I searched for the red signs that should have pointed to an emergency exit. I saw one arrow, then another, but they did not agree. One pointed left. The next pointed right. When I looked back at the first, it pointed somewhere else. I felt the store correcting me, not by force, but by small changes that made me doubt my own eyes. I passed the same shelf of cereal twice, then 3 times. The boxes were faced forward like someone had just fixed them. Each time the aisle sign above changed. It said breakfast. Then it said PETS. Then it said household. The shelves stayed cereal. The sign lied without shame. The lights above buzzed in short bursts, like they answered the register beeps from far away. I kept turning, chasing the idea of a back wall and a fire door. The air grew cooler as I went deeper. The shoppers thinned out. I still saw 1 or 2 people at the ends of aisles, but they did not browse. They stood still with carts angled toward me, like they waited for me to pass. When I tried to take an aisle that looked clear, a cart rolled into it without a hand on it and blocked the way. My anger faded into something weak and sour. I had started this with a small act. I had told myself it was harmless. Now I could not tell what was real. My body still remembered her whisper at my ear, but the cameras had shown me alone. The receipt had described me like inventory. The manager had known about her foot. The store had used my name like a leash. I found a sign that said emergency exit with an arrow. Relief hit me so hard my eyes stung. I followed it and reached the end of the aisle. There was no door. There was only a wall of stacked paper towels, tall and tight, like the store had built a soft barrier to keep me from seeing what should be there. I turned back, and the sign behind me now said low prices, smiling bright above my head. I moved faster. I began to count aisles in my mind to stay steady. 1, 2, 3. Then the sign started repeating the same number. Aisle 4 appeared twice in different places. Then it appeared again. I stopped and looked up at the hanging marker, and the number slid in my sight, like the print did not want to settle. The store felt like it guided me away from simple paths and into loops. A smell reached me as I turned a corner. It was damp cardboard and old dust, like a basement that had been closed for years. The smell did not belong in a clean grocery store. I followed it without meaning to, pulled by the need to understand where it came from. The lights grew dimmer in that direction, and the floor felt slightly sticky, as if moisture had lived there. I looked up and saw an aisle sign that made my stomach drop. It said aisle 13. This store should not have had that number. I knew that without knowing why. The rest of the signs I had seen had been low numbers, normal and calm. 13 sat there like a private joke. The black print looked older than the other signs. The edges of the plastic were yellowed, like it had been hanging longer than the building. I stepped into aisle 13 and the smell grew stronger. The shelves were not stocked like the others. They held crushed boxes, torn packaging, and items without labels. Some things were wrapped in brown paper, tied with string. Dust clung to the metal bars that held the shelves. The air felt thick, like it did not move much. Behind me, the store noise faded until I could only hear my own breathing. As I walked deeper, I realized the aisle was longer than it should have been. It stretched beyond the end caps I had seen from outside. The lights above were spaced farther apart, leaving darker gaps. My petty confidence, the part of me that had enjoyed slipping that hot sauce into her groceries, collapsed completely. I felt small. I felt guided, like the store had chosen this place for me to reach. At the far end of the aisle, a row of mirrors stood against the back wall, tall and clean, as if they had been polished often. They were not the small convex mirrors used for security. These were full mirrors like dressing room mirrors, wrong for a grocery store. I slowed down and stared at my reflection. My face looked pale. My eyes looked too wide. Then I saw the other reflections. In every mirror, the woman stood at my side, close enough that her shoulder touched mine. Her dragged foot rested beside my shoe like it belonged there. Her eyes met mine through the glass, and in each reflection she smiled. I backed away from the mirrors until my shoulders hit the shelf behind me. My reflection moved with me, but the woman in the glass stayed too close. Her smile did not change. It held steady like a sticker placed on a face. I turned my head to check the aisle beside me. There was no one, only dust and crushed boxes and the damp smell. I looked back at the mirrors. In every pane she still stood at my side, smiling like she had won. My throat tightened. I forced my feet to move. I did not run down aisle 13. I walked fast, eyes forward, refusing to look at the shelves again. I expected the aisle to stretch longer and trap me. Instead, the end came suddenly, like the store let me go because it wanted me somewhere else. The normal aisles returned, bright and stocked, like aisle 13 had never existed. The smell of damp cardboard faded, but it clung to the back of my nose. I followed the sound of people, dragging myself back toward the front where the lights were harsh and the air felt watched. As I entered the main area near the registers, the beeping had stopped. The sudden quiet was worse. It made every small sound sharp: cart wheels, plastic bags, a cough. I felt like I had stepped into a room where a conversation had ended when I arrived. The woman stood near the self-checkout stations, hands folded in front of her. Her limp was still there, but it looked controlled now, like she used it on purpose. She did not rush to me. She waited until I came close enough that walking past her would have been a choice everyone could see. Her voice was calm when she spoke. It carried without sounding loud. It sounded like a person explaining a simple rule to someone who refused to learn. She said, "You knew what you did." I tried to walk around her. She shifted one step and kept herself between me and the doors. She did it slowly, and that made it feel worse. She did not need to chase me. She only needed to guide me where she wanted. I asked her what she wanted. My voice shook, and I hated that it did. I kept my eyes on her face, not her foot. I did not want to give her the satisfaction of seeing me look. She tilted her head as if she felt sorry for me. She said, "You tried to punish me in public. You wanted everyone to think I was the problem." My stomach turned. The words matched the fear that had been building since customer service. It felt like she had taken the shape of my guilt and put it on like clothing. I said she had cut in front of me. I said she had stolen my charge. I said she whispered my name and followed me. I heard myself listing it like a report, like facts would save me. Her eyes stayed steady. She said, "You stood in line alone. You put the bottle in my bag. You made it so I could not pay for my own things. You hurt my foot." I flinched at the last part. I did not know how the bottle could hurt her foot. I had not touched her. I had only slid it forward. But I remembered her dragging step. I remembered her tightening posture. It was like the store had taken my small act and turned it into a wound that belonged to her. People had gathered without me noticing. A half circle formed near the lanes. Some held phones at chest height. Others watched with open faces, waiting. The manager stood off to one side, arms relaxed, like he supervised a lesson. The woman took one slow step closer. Her limp made her look patient, not weak. She said, "You could apologize. You could stop making a scene. You could let everyone go back to normal." Her words pushed me toward humiliation. If I apologized, I would become what the store wanted: the banned customer on the board, the unstable man who admitted fault to calm the room. My fear of being judged tightened into a hard knot, but another feeling rose under it. Rage. Not loud rage. A clear anger at being shaped into the villain. I stopped backing up. I turned slightly so the crowd could see my face. My mouth went dry, but I forced my voice to rise. I spoke louder than I meant to, because I needed witnesses more than I needed comfort. I said she cut in front of me at lane 3. The register showed my full name without me giving it. My card was charged without my tap. The receipt printed a list of things about my body. I said I saw her on the security camera behind me when she was not there. I said the manager knew about her foot before I ever mentioned it. The woman did not react. She only watched me like she waited for me to finish digging my own hole. I looked from face to face, searching for one person who looked confused, one person who looked like they also found this wrong. I demanded that someone here confirm if they saw her cut the line. I asked who filmed me. I asked them to show the video. I asked the cashier in lane 3 to speak. For a moment, the front of the store went completely silent. No beeps, no carts, no voices. Then every head in the crowd turned toward me at once, smooth and exact, like they had been waiting for a cue. The silence broke when a new voice cut through the front of the store, firm and rough, not polite like the others. A man in a black security jacket stepped in from the entrance area. He carried a radio that crackled with real noise. He looked at the crowd first, then at me, then at the woman. His eyes moved like a person making fast choices, not like a worker reading a script. He raised one hand and told everyone to step back. His voice made people move without thinking. Phones lowered, carts rolled away. The half circle opened up as if someone had pulled a string. The manager's calm face finally changed. He looked annoyed, not blank. Mia and Dan stopped smiling. The security guard asked me what happened. I started to talk all at once, but he held up his hand and told me to slow down. He did not call me unstable. He did not tell me to breathe. He looked at the woman and asked her for her side. The woman kept her chin lifted, but her control slipped. Her lips tightened. Her eyes flashed toward me, sharp with anger, then back to the guard. She spoke in a calm voice, but it sounded forced now. She said I had bothered her in line. She said I tried to add something to her purchase. She said I had followed her. The words sounded less powerful with the guard standing there, like they needed the store to back them up. The guard nodded once, then stepped between us. He asked the manager to show him the register area and the cameras. The manager hesitated, then forced a smile that did not reach his eyes. He said it was store policy. The guard did not argue. He only looked at him and said he needed the footage for a report. The manager's shoulders dropped a little. He waved toward the back. As they moved away, the store felt normal again. The lights stopped buzzing in bursts. The aisle sign stayed still. The front doors slid open for a customer who walked in without looking at me. The sound of scanners returned in random beeps, not a pattern. It felt like waking from a dream and still feeling sweat on my skin. The guard came back after a few minutes. His face stayed hard. He told the woman she needed to leave the store. He did not say why, and I did not ask. He took her elbow in a careful grip. She pulled back once, then stopped. Her limp looked plain now, like a real injury. When she dragged her foot, it sounded like rubber on tile, not like a message. She stared at me as she walked past. Her smile was gone. Her anger looked simple and human. She opened her mouth as if she would say my name again, but the guard told her to keep moving. She went through the front doors, slow and stiff, and disappeared into the bright parking lot. The manager returned to customer service with the guard beside him. His voice had changed. It sounded tired and normal. He apologized for the confusion and offered to reverse the charge. He did not mention my behavior. He did not mention lane 3. Mia took my phone number and asked me to confirm the last 4 digits of my card. Her hands shook just enough that I noticed. A new receipt printed, short and clean. It listed a refund and a simple note about a canceled sale. No lines about my body, no inventory of my fear. I stared at it until my eyes hurt, waiting for something else to appear. Nothing did. I walked out through the front doors without anyone stopping me. The guard stayed inside, watching the lanes. The air outside felt colder than it should have, and it cleared my head in a painful way. My hand still trembled as I reached my car. I sat in the driver's seat with the receipt in my lap and forced myself to read it like proof. It was normal except for one line at the bottom under the return total. It said, "Thank you for shopping. Please remember, eyes were on you." I swallowed and started the car. Then I looked down at the floor mat near the pedals. A fresh footprint mark pressed into the dust there, deep at the heel and dragged at the toe, with a tread pattern that matched the woman's shoe.